Good evening. I'm going to call our November 7th Baldwin County Planning and Zoning Commission to order. At this time, I'm going to ask, if you will, to stand with me, and we'll have a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Our Father, we're thankful to you for the blessings of this day. We're thankful for the good life we have here in this county and in this place and time. We thank you for blessing us. I think we would consider ourselves a blessed people. Now, Father, we ask your blessings on this meeting. As I always say, I pray that we show respect to each other and honor you in all that we say and do. We pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'll call roll. Brandon Bias. Here. Robert Davis. Scott Schamberger. Michael Mullick. Here. Greg Seibert. Here. Jamie Stratiger. Here. Lynn Seal. Diane Burnett. Here. Michael Fletcher. Here. George Waters. Here. And Reed Keith. All right, we have a quorum. All right, you each received a copy of the minutes from our October 3rd work session and regular meeting. And unless you have any comments, I'd entertain a motion that those both be approved.
So moved.
Mr. Seibert's made a motion that both those minutes be approved. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Davis seconded the motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, this time our Planning Director, Jay Dixon, will come up and have some comments for us before we get into our agenda.
Go back one. That's fine. Good next. That one? Presentation. There you go. Sorry. All right. Morning, everybody. Or this afternoon. Oh, shoot. Morning. It's afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, like we do every month, before we get into our public hearings, we do have a pretty full agenda today. Want to quickly go through the public hearing guidelines. It's a pretty full house. So when you come up, the public comments should only be made during the public hearing portion of the agenda. When you come up to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. Comments should be directed towards the chairman, and he can send those comments out to whoever the most appropriate person to answer it would be. Then comments should be focused only on the application that is being presented at that time. And comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless you're here representing a group. It can be extended to 5 minutes. The rezoning cases that we'll have as we go through every month, our zoning ordinance is pretty clear about the criteria that rezoning must be reviewed by. Is it compatible with the development pattern? Has there been any changes in conditions since the original zone? Does the proposed rezoning better conform to the master plan? Does it conflict with any public improvements? Is there any adverse impacts to traffic? And by this statement, I always try to clarify that when you're looking at rezoning cases, you're looking at the transportation network of the area, not any localized transportation improvements that may be needed. That would be a subdivision issue, not a rezoning issue. So keep that in mind when we talk about traffic and rezonings. Is the proposal consistent with the development pattern? Is it a logical expansion of adjacent zoning? Is the timing appropriate given development trends? Are there any impacts to environmental or historic areas? And finally, is there any adverse impacts to health, safety, and wellness of the community? And then, of course, we have a catch-all if there's any special provision for the unique request being made. On the subdivisions, when they were presented before you, the state law is very clear about how this board must consider them. That if the subdivision does meet all of the current subdivision regulations, that the board must approve the subdivision as it meets all the regulations. And so there's much more of a technical review on those and less subjective review. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions before we get started.
Okay. In addition to what Mr. Dixon said, let me just state that we have about 19 items on the agenda tonight. I will open the public hearing on each item, and when you sign up, your name will show up on my pad here, and I will call on you at the appropriate time to come up and speak. And as Jay said, you'll have 3 minutes to speak unless you're representing a group, and you'll get 5. When you'll hear an alarm go off, and that'll be the time for you to stop speaking, and please respect that so that we can move on. You can see we already have quite a few people here tonight. And once I close the public hearing, you will not have the opportunity to speak again. So please don't ask to speak after I close the public hearing, because you'll make me look like I'm being rude. But that's just the way we have to do it to move on. Now, having said that, we do something a little different with some of our items. We have, I believe it's 8 items that we have put on the consent agenda, which means I'm about to read all of those off. If no one is here to speak on those items, we will group those together, open the public hearing, close it, and we will vote on all 8 at one time, and those will be done. But just to be clear, if you're here tonight to speak on one of these 8, I'll give you the chance. All you need to do is raise your hand when I call it. I will take it off the consent agenda, and we'll open it up separately for you to have opportunity to speak to it. So, I'm going to read them off one at a time. If you will, if you're here to speak on this item, just raise your hand at this point so I'll know to take it off the consent agenda. The first one is PER 24-41. This is the Lone Oak Farms subdivision. Is anybody? Oh, I'm sorry. The first 2 we have are not public hearings, so I'll skip those. Thank you, Ms. Waters. All right, the next one is the Bayshore Christian School, CSP 24-36, Bayshore Christian School. Anybody here to speak in opposition? All right, the next one is the PUD 22-17, Firefly Commons. Is that a public? That is a public hearing. Anybody here on that one? All right, SC 24-47, which is Wynn's Place. Anybody? Okay. The next one is SC 24-51. This is a re-subdivision of Lot 6 of Bishop Trace. Okay. The next one is SPP 24-21, the Meadows subdivision. Anyone here to speak on that one? All right. And the last one is SPP 24-28, Smithfield Estate subdivision. All right, I have one in the back. You're here to speak in opposition to it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're going to take the last one off the consent agenda. All right, with that, then, I am going to open the public hearing. I'm going to read these off. Open the public hearing now for case number PER 24-41. Well, I got to skip. PER 24-41 Lone Oak Farm subdivision, PER 24-42 Fairhope Falls Phase 6 and 7 extension. These are not public hearings. Now I'll open the public hearing for case number CSP 24-36 Bayshore Christian School, PUD 22-17 Firefly Commons, SC 24-47 Wynn's Place, SC 24-51 Re-Subdivision Lot 6 Bishop Trace, and SPP 24-21 the Meadows Subdivision. I'm now going to close the public hearing on that, and I will entertain a motion from the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Okay. Brandon Bias has made the motion that we approve. Greg Seibert has seconded the motion. For these 7 items on the consent agenda, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those 7 are approved. All right, now we'll go back to SPP 24-28, the Smithfield Estates subdivision. Ms. Waters, you want to give us some background on this? I've opened the public hearing on this one, so if you will, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, this is case SPP 2428, Smithfield subdivision. This is a preliminary plat request for an 8-lot subdivision. The property owners are T.M. Smith Holdings LLC, and the surveyor was Mr. David Lowery. The location of this subject property is west of Phillipsville Road and south of Jute Road. This is currently located in unzoned planning district 6. As I mentioned earlier, there are 8 lots proposed with this subdivision. A traffic study was not required due to the lot count, and the drainage narrative was reviewed and accepted by the permit engineers. Here is a map of the aerial imagery. Here is your proposed subdivision plat. And I have enlarged and cropped it so you can see the lots. All lots are proposed are 3 acres. And staff's recommendation is of approval with a specific condition that the applicant will submit a final plat application that will be reviewed and approved administratively by staff. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Give us a second, we're having technical difficulty. Right?
Yeah, this appears to be last month's signage on here.
Okay,
Les?
let me do this, we'll go the old-fashioned way. Is there someone representing the applicant here on this one? All right, then I'm going to ask the person that raised their hand if you'll come up and give us your name. Yeah, you need to come up to the center podium here.
Brendan, you having problem with the iPad?
I think I found it.
Give us your name, if you will.
Henry Snow. I live at 45520 Phillipsville Road, which is about 200 yards from the proposed site.
Okay.
My biggest question is, are y'all going to require the developer or whoever to make sure that they do a test or whatever for the runoff and everything for the natural water sources that are there? Because there is a creek and stream that feeds into the natural water that runs behind it. And I'm worried about contamination of my water source, which I have a well, I have well water. I'm worried about the contamination of my wells, and I'm just wondering if it's going to be required for them to do some type of, remediation or whatever for the drainage of whoever lots or whatever they put there. That's one big question. The other big question is, what type of restrictions are they going to have? I know that they can put 2 trailers on one lot or whatever, or is it going to actually be developed by individuals, or is this company going to develop it, the whole 8 lots themselves, is my biggest question.
And Ms. Waters, you want to try to take a stab at those for us?
Yes. Due to the large lot of these lots, they're 3 acres, it did not trigger any requirements for drainage infrastructure to be installed. And when we look at the potential wetlands map, there were no wetlands located on this subject property, so we did not require the applicant to provide us a wetlands delineation. I'm not sure exactly where your property is, but on this specific property, there was no impact of any wetlands. And as far as the restriction goes, this is unzoned, so as you mentioned, they are allowed to put up to 2 dwellings, and that can be RVs, single-family dwellings, mobile homes. As far as I'm aware, the applicant didn't state that they were going to require any type of covenant or deed restrictions. But again, this is unzoned. As long as they stay below the unit count that they're allowed, they can pretty much do anything here.
Okay.
Animals, that sort of thing, it's allowed.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. If I have it right, no one else has signed up to speak on this. All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Anybody have a question for staff? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion on this item. All right, Mr. Davis made a motion to be approved. Have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bias has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this point, we're going to move into a long, I don't count, but it's a long list of rezonings we'll be going through at this point. Just so that I'll probably say it after each one, but each of these cases are heard by this planning commission. We make a recommendation to the county commission to approve or deny, or even to table this. We can table it if we choose to, but I'll go into that as we move into them. So I'm going to open the public hearing now for case number SPP 24-22 and also for Z 24-17. This is the Point Clear Village, Phase 3.
Okay, so the staff report will start with the rezoning request and
Mr.
then
Chairman, I recuse myself.
Wait a minute.
Clear.
Mr. Bias is going to recuse himself on this item.
Thank you.
All right, so the subject property is at the corner of County Road 32 and Scenic 98. It's approximately 2.2 acres, and the current zoning is B2, and this front parcel is in pink, and then the back is RSF1. The rezoning request applies just to the pink areas, the B2. They're requesting RSF2, and the back portion of this will not change. RSF2, the minimum lot size is 15,000 square feet, and the lot width is 80 feet wide. It shows you the properties in the area, so you can see there's a lot of residential building currently there. So the adjacent uses are residential. As far as the analysis for the rezoning request, it is compatible with the residential development of the area so far. You can see it is designated as a conservation area on the flume map. This whole area, as I said, has already been developed for residential, so it might not fit the flume map, but it does fit the existing uses in the area right now. And I know some people are here from Planning District 26, and so I want to address, they have a local provision that says that if they prohibit rezoning that increases land use density or intensity. Rezoning from B2 to a residential use tends to support the notion that this could reduce both intensity and density. And I put on there the uses allowed currently under the B2. And so you can see you have discount stores, drug stores, and you can also have mixed use with residential and commercial in one building. And so for those reasons, we felt like to rezone from business to residential would potentially decrease both density and intensity. So for the factors, excuse me, for the most part, we approve each of the steps. Conform with the master plan, like I mentioned, does not fit that. But then the conflicts with public improvements, we are not aware of any improvements. Historical impacts, we're not aware of any. Health, safety, and welfare, it is an area that is prone to flooding and wetlands, but again, it fits with what is in the surrounding area currently. So that's the rezoning, and then now for the subdivision, again, it's 2.2 acres, and they're proposing 3 lots. There has been a drainage letter that was approved by the permit engineer. Wetlands have been delineated on the property. It is in the flood zone X shaded, so in the 100-year floodplain. Fire flow meets requirements. All the utilities meet the requirements with the necessary will serve letters. Fairhope Utilities is providing water and sewer. And here you can see the layout. I'm going to go to the one that's zoomed in so you can see the size of the lots, and you can see that they are compatible with the things that are already adjacent to them. As far as infrastructure, they will have to install a common drive because of the road classification of Highway 98. And so the way we normally do this is that we approve the preliminary plat, they install the driveway, and then they come back for an administrative approval of the final plat. Another thing that we've requested, because there are only 3 lots, typically they don't have to install things like drainage, detention ponds, stormwater facilities, but because there has been a lot of growth in this area and we have wetlands, we're requesting that when each site is developed, that each individual site will have to retain all the stormwater on site through rain gardens or some other sort of infrastructure, or just could be green infrastructure, but that will be handled at the ZSP level when each owner comes in to develop their plot. So for the rezoning, staff recommends approval, and for the subdivision, staff recommends approval with the conditions being the installation of the common driveway, and again, the stormwater retention at the time of home building, and then the approval of the zoning request. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay. I have Miss Melissa Hadley signed up to speak. Do you want to say anything? Okay, Ms. Hadley's representing the applicant, and so does anybody have any questions for her? Okay. And that is all I have signed up to speak. Is that correct? No one else? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. And we are going to take these separately. We'll start with the rezoning for Z24-17. So let's take action on it first. I'll entertain a motion. This will be a recommendation to the County Commission. And Mr. Davis has made a motion that we recommend approval of the rezoning. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher seconded the motion. Any questions on that motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Zoning recommendation is approved. Okay, now we'll take action on the subdivision portion, which is SPP 24-22. And this, of course, if approved, will be subject to the County Commission approving the rezoning. Do I have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion we approve subdivision.
All right, Mr. Davis made a motion to approve subject to staff conditions, right? Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Mullick has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll get Mr. Bias back here. Oh, there you are. At this time, we'll open the public hearing now for case number Z24-31. This is, give me just a second. This also has 2 parts, so we're going to open the public hearing for case number Z24-31, Valovecki property. This is the rezoning, and then also the PRD 24-04, which is Lanterna subdivision. It's a PRD. So open the public hearing on those. I didn't ask this before. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? On these items? Not? Okay. Ms. Boykin?
All right. This is a request for rezoning and PRD approval for a 295 unit residential development. Here you can see the subject property is located in Planning District 15, just west of 181 and north of Pleasant Road. The applicant, as stated, the current property is zoned RA, RSFE, and B2, and the applicant is asking that it be rezoned to RSF2 and RMF6, which is a multifamily. The development consists of about 89 acres. They are proposing 132 single-family sites and 156 townhomes. Here's the subject property. It's surrounded by the city of Daphne. You have estate residential lots and also some commercial lots. This shows what the current zoning is on the left-hand side. You can see the long, narrow rectangle shape that is yellow. That is currently RSFE. The green square is RA, and the pink area is B2. And then on the other side, you can see they are asking to rezone the RSFE and RA to RSF2, and then part of the B2 lot as RMF6, and leaving the southern part as B2, which is not part of this development. Here are the factors staff reviewed. You can see here's the current zoning map and the original zoning map for Planning District 15. There have been several changes throughout the district. In this area, there have been multiple annexations by the city of Daphne, and some HDR zoning and some commercial zoning along 181. Does the proposed zoning better conform to the master plan? Yes, the majority of the future land use is mid-development potential areas, and this includes traditional neighborhoods with a mix of housing and price points, with smaller lot sizes to include patio homes, cottage homes, townhouses, and multifamily. Will the proposed change conflict with existing planned public improvements? No, it will not have conflict. The county is proposing to extend Pleasant Road. This will help alleviate any traffic issues with this development and also include a regional stormwater detention area. Here is the site plan. This is the site data. You can see the different types of single-family lots they have with the lot width and depth. Here are the proposed PRD variations from the current zoning. The proposed RF2 zoning, you can see on the left-hand side. The applicant is proposing to reduce the front and rear yard to 25 feet and reduce the side yards to 6 feet. And then on the townhomes, which is the proposed RMF6 zoning, they are proposing 3.93 units per acre and reduce the minimum lot area to 2,200 square feet with the lot width of 20 feet at building and street line. This is the applicant's amenity plans. They're proposing a playground, pavilion, multiple walking trails, some that are mulched and some that are through a landscaped area. Here is their landscape plan. They propose several landscape areas throughout the development. And staff has recommended approval of the rezoning request, and also we are recommending approval of the PRD request with the condition that the rezonings are approved.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Not yet. It's coming. Hang on. This is for Planning Commission question first. Anybody in the Planning Commission have a question for staff? Okay. Mr. Jenwright, you represent the applicant. Do you want to come up and speak?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Trey Jenwright, J Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. What we provided, we believe, is a great project that provides a nice transect from the single family to the west over to the commercial development on the Highway 181. If you've got any questions on the development, I'll be glad to answer those. And so thank you for your time.
All right, I think we might, so hang on just a second. I'll open it up first to the planning commission members. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Okay.
Have a question. It was mentioned that mulch was going to be used for some of the walking trails.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, that's what's considered right now. Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Mulch, in my opinion, doesn't really work. It shifts. Would you consider putting hard surface down?
So, you know, I just had a meeting last night with Foley, and the conversation was the walking trails, you know, do we want a hard surface where it's a concrete or asphalt surface, or do you want it more of a natural feel? And so
You can use.
this one's more of a natural. We're trying to go for the more natural approach, but I'm here to listen to you. So, you know, if that's a hard condition, then we'll certainly consider it.
It doesn't have to be asphalt or concrete. It can be a pervious surface that's hard.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions?
I do have one more.
Okay.
Sorry. That the linear green space,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes, ma'am, in the middle? Yes, ma'am.
can you give me the dimensions of that, please?
It's probably, just looking at it, it's probably 100-foot wide.
And
So-
how long is it?
It's It's about 800 feet.
Okay. And is it relatively, going to be relatively flat?
The idea on this project is to provide, it's almost twice as much common space as that the development's required. And so what I was trying to do is bring that to the center of the development. And so that is an amenity where most people would stick them in the back. This is going to be a piece that's in the front of those houses. They're going to front it. And so that being a usable space that is flat and accessible and recreational opportunities or visually appealing, that's what we're trying to do there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Trey, I've got a little bit of a concern on the placement of the playground on the amenities plan. I mean, I feel like it's kind of tucked away on that far eastern edge.
I don't have a problem moving that to a better location.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking just, looking at this as think of it as kind of two neighborhoods. Something centrally located in the townhomes would be probably better. And then, Diane's point, I think a playground on the northern, I guess the western end of that kind of linear greenway, in the single-family side would be a nice place to put one.
Yeah, I want to, so this is the zoning component of it, and I want to dive into if this gets approved, the next phase of really diving into the dynamics of how it works, traffic studies, drainage, and all those things. And so I want to get some traffic numbers on where I want to put this playground. I don't know if I want to just put it in a really high concentration of traffic. If I pulled it off the side somewhere, maybe in the central section, it may be a good spot to put it so that they're not having to cross the streets to go play in it. But I hear you. I've done it before. I want to process that a little bit before we just nail it down. I will agree to that we put it in a more centrally located in the project. I think that's a very reasonable and respectful request.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
You can get that back up for me. Did you want to speak? Okay. All right, I have a list here. I know of others, but just hang on a second. All right. Samuel Dean. And just remember, this is, when you start speaking, that's when the clock will start running on each of these.
2 or 2.5 minutes. To say that the existing residents that live on Pleasant Road, including myself and my wife, oppose this would be a gross understatement. I realize that you aren't here to approve or disapprove the development of the subdivision, but the land that the subdivision is going to be built on. So a little bit of history on that land. It's not like my wife's family just moved here 5 or 10 years ago. They're embedded in the community since the 1860s. They were Italian farmers, the Cordis, the Allegris, and the Burgers, which is my wife's maiden name. So we've been in the community for 160 years. Unfortunately, we built our house out there about 40 years ago, me and my wife, and raised our family. And we've witnessed the steady disappearance from a rural farming community into a chaotic metro area, which can only be described as uncontrolled expansion of apartments, cracker box volume builders' houses, grocery stores, and traffic of which the city of Daphne or the county cannot keep up with as it is. Talking about deterioration of the roads, the potholes, and the volume of traffic. There's a general consensus, as I said, among the present homeowners out there. What do we have to gain from this? Absolutely nothing. Right at the entrance of Pleasant Road, as it's drawn, I'm the second lot over from that, and I'm gonna have a 3-acre holding pond that butts right against my property. If y'all were here during Hurricane Danny, now given the volume of rain over a 24-hour period of time was egregious, but there was 5 inches of standing water from 181 to 13 in Pleasant Road all the way over to Seahoy subdivision. And it stayed there for a week and a half. Underneath, that's farmland. It's got 8 or 10 inches of topsoil, and under that is the hardest clay base in the county. I don't care how many retention ponds you put out there, especially the one that's going to be right up against my property. When you go in there and you put 2 to 3 miles of asphalt roads,
That's your 3 minutes.
and then thousands of yards of concrete, where's that water going to go?
Okay, Mr. James Clark.
Good evening. I've lived on 9720 Pleasant Road for a long time, about 40-something years. And I'm fully aware of the existing traffic and flood problems. Development of these parcels included here will approximately add 2,000 or 3,000 plus vehicles to the already overcrowded roads and intersections. Pleasant Road is already a cut-through with traffic almost every day. Traffic's there day and night. How can you possibly redirect traffic going to schools, work, during rush hour traffic? It takes me sometimes, believe it or not, 10, 20 minutes, a certain time of the day, to cross the road to get my mail. The speed limit's 35, but the average speed is 50 to 80. And is it going to take a fatality to control the speed? And during heavy thunderstorms, like Sam said, especially with Danny at times, the so-called overflow pond down there fills up and all the water backs up under our house. To recap, my question is to the county. Traffic, flooding, speeding, what can the county do to fix this if the property is developed? Thank you.
Okay. Get that back. No, it would. Raymond Jones. I'll just keep moving it.
Hi, Raymond Jones, 9538 Otaga Bend in Daphne, part of Sahoy. My property is directly adjacent on the right side to the units they're proposing to build. My sentiments are very similar to the people that have spoken before me. I worry about traffic congestion. I worry about taxing on the utilities there. I worry about school traffic. And actually, one of my big concerns, of course, is the drainage scenario, because it's always been low, as he talked about with the last storm and the flooding. Those units along the right side look to me like there'll be a lot of spillage that could end up in my backyard and affect my home. And also, in general, just the value of my home. Presently, you have the view looking across all that acreage and the farmland, and it's very peaceful, tranquil, and it enhances the value of my home. Everybody that's ever visited to come by has always been the number one comment about sitting in the backyard and looking out across that acreage. And again, tied in with that is the concern for just the overall reduction in rural agricultural space in Daphne. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. Brenda Ladd.
Good afternoon. I'm Brenda Ladd. I live in adjacent property in Sahoy subdivision. I have the same concerns as everybody else that has spoken about this. I'm emphatically opposed to this for several reasons. The traffic on 181 is pretty much a nightmare, and if you looked at the traffic incidents and accidents that happen every week, I travel 181 6 days a week. Every morning, I would say there's close calls, and typically once a week there's a severe accident. What is going to be the access for people getting in and out of this neighborhood with that many residents going onto 181? My greater concern is I live literally in the corner adjacent to the wetlands and where that runoff pond is. In a heavy rain, even with that wetlands, rainwater can come up 15 feet into my yard. Now that's with 2 fields there to absorb this water, and there's a ditch that runs in between. I don't see where that ditch goes. With that much structure, that much pavement, all this excess rain is going to go into my yard, not 15 feet, it's going to go 30 feet. I'm not required to cover flood insurance because I'm technically on high ground. This changes a lot. That wetland area, it's seasonal, but if you get 6 inches, and we know we can get 6 inches pretty much whenever Mother Nature allows it, it floods. I have had to refurbish my yard now because of just Mother Nature and the water coming in, and then it recedes and it just pulls everything away. I've put in a retaining wall. I've tried to support it best I can, but it's a huge concern. Even with that size retention pond, how deep are the ponds? How much water can it hold? Is it going to hold all the runoff from these streets, all the other areas? It's a huge concern for me because insurance, as everybody knows here, is continuing to go up if you can get it. So it puts me in jeopardy of my home insurance being compromised and the ability for me to get flood insurance. It's a huge concern. I vehemently oppose this development, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Ben Schoenfeld. I may not have said your last name right, so I apologize if I did.
Thank you very much. My name is Ben Schoenfeld. I live at 9671 Pleasant Road. Just happens to be the original house built in 1942 on a dirt road. That's not a dirt road anymore. Now it's flat, straight, 1 mile from 181 to 13 Middle School, drag strip. It's already been commented about. I call the county commissioners at least every quarter to see if we can get a little help to monitor it. because that's Highway Patrol and the county, not Daphne. I would like to comment too about rezoning. My house does not, I'm 4 houses down from the proposed entrance on Pleasant Road, entrance and exit. If I hadn't have been told by a neighbor that we were having a rezoning meeting, I would never know it, because there's no sign on Pleasant Road. It's only on 181. About 6 weeks ago, on 181, leaving Pleasant Road going to 64, I'm in the turn lane to go to the gas station, moving along, talking about traffic, 6 o'clock in the evening. Somebody decided they wanted in my lane at the same time, pushed me across 2 lanes of traffic. Thank goodness they were stopped at the traffic light, or I may not even be here. The proposed number of units and the number of automobiles that would be associated with those units is a heavy burden to Pleasant Road in addition to 181. I have 1 acre and 3/4, beautiful property. I'm concerned about the property value going down. I'm concerned about the traffic. Highway 90 up by Lowe's and 181, Pleasant Road from 181 to 13 Daphne Middle School, and 64 are all cut-throughs to 98 until you get down to 104 in Fairhope. So these 3 roads get all the traffic. Between Daphne Middle School, Tryon Sportsplex, Daphne High School, you'd have to live on the street to appreciate the volume of traffic already. So with approximately 295 units going in, houses and apartments, you can only imagine if there was just 1 car per vehicle, per unit, how many cars would go in and out of these entrances on a daily basis, to school, to work, back and forth. I'm completely opposed to doing this. No telling what what would happen to a beautiful 2-lane road, Pleasant Road, if something like this were approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, Bob Allen.
Hi, I'm Bob Allen. I also live on Pleasant Road, and I support all the previous comments from the other people. I have 2 general questions I'd like addressed. Will a detailed traffic study be made for Pleasant Road and how the traffic flow along Pleasant Road is going to be addressed? And that also includes any turning lanes along Pleasant Road, and how much traffic stacking is there going to be up and down Pleasant Road from this? It's already a nightmare trying to turn out of my driveway onto Pleasant Road, and with 500 or 600 additional cars from the proposed project, it's really going to be tough. I really don't agree with the reviewer's comment that extending Pleasant Road over to Rigby Road is going to help traffic from this development on Pleasant Road. It looks like to me, and I'm not necessarily against the extending Pleasant Road, but it does look like that's going to put more traffic on Pleasant Road rather than take more traffic off. I'm also really concerned about the flood issues that could happen on Pleasant Road and the houses on Pleasant Road from this development. Already, just your routine 2 or 3 times a year of larger thunderstorms ponds water up close to coming into several houses on Pleasant Road. It backs up the drainage ditch leading into the detention pond that's already, it's filled in already. There's no maintenance to keep that clean, and it's already exceeded its limits several times a year, and then water begins to back up all along the ditches and along Pleasant Road, and I'm concerned that this additional development is going to put more water coming down that access to Pleasant Road into that drainage ditch. So I guess to conclude my comments, I think that there ought to be no negative impacts to people who live outside of that development. If if there's negative impacts for those living in the development, they know it going in. But those of us that are already here, we think we should not suffer any impacts to our lifestyle from this development. Zero impacts, and that's, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Jones?
Thank you for your time. I wasn't planning on speaking, but everybody's, what they've talked about so far as the flooding goes. I'm right there on Sahoy. I'm the neighbors of everybody they were just talking. When we get some serious rain, 6-7 inches, which is, happens all the time, the flooding is an issue. I get water coming all the way up into my house. I'm on lot 43 right there on the corner. So, look, we understand we can't stop development, okay? Development happens. You can't stop the growth, but we can be smart about it. We want to make sure that we do it right. I second everybody's comments. Everything they're saying is true. Traffic, what nobody's even brought up is the Parker Lane. Eventually, Parker Lane is going to be coming out of that subdivision. Am I correct or incorrect on that? It comes through to 13. So what is the traffic going to be like there? I don't know if any of y'all have driven on 13. It's 7:45 in the morning, and you have to go through 3 schools, and you're going to have 300 more houses, trying to get to all the schools there. It's going to be insane. They're already putting in turning lanes. There's another 65-unit development that's being built back there as we speak. There's a bunch of townhomes. That's going to be, figure that out. 2 cars a household, that's another 120 cars that's going to be coming down 13 every single morning, every single afternoon. So I just wanted to reiterate what they're saying. Traffic is definitely a problem. Flooding is definitely a problem when it rains. If the developer, I want to know actually who the developer is and who's going to develop the property, and then who is the takeout source of that? Who is the builder of all these properties? If anybody can answer that.
It's right there.
Yeah,
She just
right
pulled
here.
it up for the developer,
Miranda
The
Homes. Okay, very good. Sounds good. Very good. Okay, thank you. Well, then I can get with you after that as far as buffers and setbacks and whatnot. Very good. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Are you Kevin, by the way? No?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any?
No, it was only if I needed to respond to anything.
Okay. Now, this is all I had signed up to speak. Is there someone else that wanted to speak on this item that didn't sign up? All right, I'll let you come up. Wait a minute, Trey. I got one more. I'll let this one. Be sure to sign up and speak if you want to speak. Go ahead. Give us your name.
I'm Anthony LaConce. I live on Pleasant Road, right there 2 houses down from the school. Everything they said is so true. The flood, we got a lot of water. But I think there's a lot of things we're overlooking. We got a school on that corner there. I live there, and I see these kids come back and forth. And the traffic there is horrendous. And I'm going to tell you, you can approve this, which you probably already are getting your back pocket plan. But anyway, I want you to remember this. If there's one child gets hurt or gets killed on there, who is going to be responsible? There's traffic. Somebody needs to go out there and monitor the traffic that we're getting on this road. I live right there next to Jubilee Baptist Church, which I couldn't ask for a better neighbor, I'll tell you. But the traffic we're having, the water we got, is unreal. We got state troopers. The line, one side's county, one side's the city. State troopers on one side, cities on the other. They're making a fortune giving those tickets coming through there. So we need to really consider and look at the traffic and what we got and the damage we're going to do. We're running a lot of good land here. But I know there's nothing we can do about development. It's going to happen. But I don't think this is the right development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Jenright, did you want to come up and kind of respond to some of these comments?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time. I wanted to point out, so this project is, right now as it's zoned, that whole frontage out there, that whole track is all commercial. There's 56 acres of commercial. And the impervious on that, it could be considerable. So traffic, stormwater, they're all pretty much related. This part of the county is relatively flat. There are pockets of grady ponds and things that are not created, and so as those storms that were described earlier, they just sit there and stand. There's nowhere really positive outfalls. So what's happened since those last storms is the DOT has created a large ditch section on the east side of 181 that heads down to the south. That's helped out some of it. We know this going in advance because you can see by the relationship, the percentage of ponds that we've shown there. We know it's going to be a heavy stormwater management facility. We're not fooling ourselves. We've taken that into account, and that's why we're showing what we're showing. We felt that traffic, as a lot of the planners will tell you, is going to happen, but the best way to handle it is we need more streets. We need more interconnectivity. We need more routes for people to travel. Right now, a lot of the areas, Sahoy, I worked on it 20 years ago. The section that they're talking about was one of the projects I did 20 years ago. It's a dead-end cul-de-sac street. It only one way in and one way out back to 13. It would have been good to see that ultimately connect out to 181, but that didn't happen. This neighborhood here provides connection from 181 over to Pleasant, and then ultimately, yes, it's going to stub to the north because we're trying to provide more access points to get traffic to move from one place to the next. You've got more opportunities. If there's a wreck at this intersection, traffic can move over to here. That's what we're trying to do here. If we didn't do a transect like this where you start from heavy commercial and work your way back up to single family, the commercial would build out and there would be no more access on the 181. All that traffic would funnel hard at Pleasant Road. There's nothing you could do about it. So what we're trying to do is provide more actions in there for that to work. We're providing a proper buffer between the high residential townhouses, or I guess you'd actually call it mid-density residential was the townhouses, and then the large buffer between that and the single family. We feel that that's a good buffer in there. That's a low section of property in there. That's where the stormwater from the people that have spoke is kind of trying to move to that wetland to the east. The wetland to the east actually moves under 181 and catches that big ditch over there. So we're trying to help the stormwater in there. I know that the county and the city of Daphne are working on additional transportation improvements in there. There's regional stormwater ponds that's been planned in there. Really not affecting this project other than the fact that I know, being here 20-something years, that this project needs sensitive stormwater management, and I'm fully capable of addressing those concerns. So I think you've got a good project here. The options going down the road could be done 100 different ways. We've got a situation where we're doubling the open space to account for all those things and trying to cluster the community into the density that would match a regular RSF2 and a better project. That would allow us to handle the stormwater. We've got buffers along Sahoy. We've got buffers on the existing residential to the south. And so we are aware of those issues that they brought up earlier, and we're glad to address those, and we fully plan to as we move forward. So if you've got anything additional to that, I'd be glad to answer that.
All right, I just want to be sure some of this was asked. I just want to be sure the folks understand. I think Mr. Jenright said it, but a question was asked about traffic. A traffic study will be done. It'll be done at all these intersections. Maybe some additional areas will be studied based on what the county or state requires of them, and then they'll have to do whatever improvements are required by the traffic study. Drainage, Mr. Jenright, I'm sure you did some general drainage, but just so that you know, if they get an approval on this tonight, it still goes to the county commission. They have to approve it. If they get those approvals, then they have to turn around and do their final design where they have to really start getting into the subdivision, and they will have to do very in-depth. I heard Mr. Jenright mention it's very sensitive. We've heard your comments about drainage. They know that. They're going to have to design accordingly. And they will have to satisfy the county engineers on their design. So there's a lot more work still to be done on this. This is not just an approval for them tonight to go out and start construction. There's a lot of work to be done yet. All right, was there any other questions by let me do this. We've already gone through this. I'm going to close the public hearing, so that's officially closed. Does anybody have any questions or comments that you need to make?
I have a question on the, I guess it's the left-hand side. What is our setback with these townhouses from the property line? One is setbacks there, and the second is, what is our plan for parking with the townhouses? Or where we are looking at the RMF 6?
So that buffer along that east side is probably about 10 feet. We've got it shown right now. It's kind of a small scale. You can't see it, but that's what we're showing. The townhouses will have a spot in the driveway, and that what we're wanting to create is an opportunity to do on-street parking in here. We feel that we've met with county staff on this project probably a half a dozen times, quite honestly, trying to come up with the proper way to do it. I think on-street parking is a way that calms traffic, provides additional guest parking in there, and so this is a great opportunity to do that. So that's what we're showing. If you look at the bubble diagram of that area, that street section, you can see how the intersections kind of curve back and provide a wider street section for the on-street parking and two-way traffic. So it's a wider than a normal residential street. The street section is allows for a car to park on there and then 2 lanes of traffic as well.
How wide are these roads through these townhouses? You're saying they're wider. And
It's on that scale right there, and I can't see it. It says it's 36 foot, so that's for 3 lanes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. All right. Not at this point. Public hearing's closed. Ms. Boykins, do you have anything else you need to add?
I do not, no.
Okay.
I had one other question. It was about what is our proposed plan with these townhouses or townhomes and it's solid waste?
So we've got 2 opportunities, and that's honestly something that would come up as we get into the formal design of it, as we're starting to submit our will serve letters, our traffic collection letters. We can do it with either a container, a common collection location, or we can do it with universal cans or individual cans in there. And that's really a conversation, if this gets approved, that we'll address it then.
Okay.
But it's a good question.
Those are things we'll definitely be looking at when we come back for more detail. Anything else? Okay. Like the last one, we will have to deal with this in stages, so let's start with the zoning. So Ms. Boykins put up there both of the recommendations. So I'll entertain a motion on the zoning first.
Chairman,
Yes.
I make a motion that we recommend the rezoning to the county commission.
To approve it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
All right, got a motion by Ms. Burnett that we make a recommendation to the county commission to approve the rezoning. Do you have a second? Mr. Davis has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Motion carries. We had 1 opposition. All right. So now we'll deal with the PRD. So I'm going to have entertain a motion on the PRD.
Can we add some conditions to my motion?
Yes.
If you want to add in your motion, yes.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the PRD with condition number 1, add condition number 4, that the walking trail will be pervious material. Number 3, move the playground to a more central location. Number 4, once the traffic study's done, that may require, I think Buford pointed out, changes in turning lanes, and that might change. So the PRD, we're saying it's stamped this way, but we can make changes only with these conditions, or should we just wait for that?
So the PRD is approving the master plan as shown. That doesn't mean that there can be minor tweaks like moving playgrounds, things like that, but primarily it's the changes between the modifications from the underlying zoning that they're being
Land use.
requested is what's really getting locked in.
Perfect. So that's my motion.
All right, so Ms. Stradger's made the motion. We recommend approval with the conditions she's listed. Do I have a second? I'll second. Mr. Bias has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion carries with 1 in opposition. Okay. Go to our next item. We'll open the public hearing now for case number Z24-41, the Fernandez property. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Baker?
Okay, this is Z2441, the Fernandez property. The request is to rezone 3.5 acres from residential single-family estate to residential single-family 1 for a 2-lot subdivision. The applicant and the owner is Simone Fernandez. The property is located in Planning District 32. The subject property is located on County Road 97 in the corner of Royal Lane. Here's the locator map and the site map. The property to the north is zoned residential single-family estate and used as residential. The property to the south is zoned residential single-family 1 and is vacant and residential. The property to the east is RA and vacant, and the property to the west is RSFE and used as residential. Here's the factory summary. It meets all conditions except for the proposal. It does not conform with the master plan. Here's the subject property, the property to the east, the property to the north, and the property to the west, and the property to the south. Here's the agency comments. Here's the staff analysis and findings. The property, when it became a zoned district in Baldwin County, it came in as RA in 1995. Somewhere between 95 and 07, this portion was rezoned from RA to RSFE. And then the property to the south was rezoned in March of 2007 from RA to RSF1. I'm sorry, I'm going up. So the parcel does not conform with the master plan. The future land use plan shows conservation development potential. The projected use of the property is residential. Therefore, the proposed zoning of RSF1 doesn't conform with the future land use map. The majority of the area is RA, rural agricultural. The related zoning districts is RSFE and RSF1, and the existing lots predate the future land use map by several years. As a result, staff, it did not qualify to meet the master plan, sorry. The request would be to further divide the 3.5 acres into 2 lots. And staff is unaware of any public improvements in the area. The property corners 97 and Royal Lane, and 97 is classified as a major collector with a highway construction setback of 50 feet from the center line of the right-of-way, and Royal Lane is classified as a local road with 40 feet center line setbacks. So staff memorializes that any roadway improvements and various other engineering-related factors are dealt with when the applicant submits for further development. Again, this is a rezoning from RSFE to RSF1, and staff's recommendation is approval unless information to the contrary is revealed at the public hearing. And I'll go back and answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, any questions for staff? Thank you, ma'am. I have one signed up in opposition, Carl Hance.
I'm Carl Hance. I reside at 30401 Royal Lane, and I strongly oppose this. When all of this property on the east end of Royal Lane was all bought by seniors, with it to be left in estate-sized property. It was all bought by Bobby Warner. And slowly but surely, we just keep cutting this down and cutting it down and cutting it down. It reduces the value of our property, and I request that it not be approved so that we can continue the residency of estate property on Royal Lane. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's all that I had signed up to speak. With that, I'll close the public hearing. I'm trying to think if I need to respond to that. Jay, do you think, best, yeah, the only thing I would say, if there was a deed restriction or something of that nature, then we can't get involved in that. So you would have to, if in fact there was some kind of a restriction legally recorded, you would have to pursue that. We can't deny it based on that. You would have to pursue a civil action. So that's the best way that I can answer that.
Yes, sir, that's correct. I mean, the only authority we have is through our zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. Any kind of deed restrictions are outside of our ability to regulate.
So it meets our regulations, but if there's something outside of our regulations through a legal document you have, then you'd have to pursue that in some other form. It wouldn't be something we could consider. Sounds odd, I know, but we've been down this road many times. And all right, with that, I will, does anybody else have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval.
All right, Mr. Mullock's made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Ms. Stratiger?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Stratiger second the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing now for case number Z24-42. This is the Howell property. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Okay.
All right, this is case Z24-42, the Howell property. The subject property is located north of US Highway 98 between St. Francis Street and 6th Street in Planning District 22. The applicant would like to rezone approximately 0.45 acres from B2 Neighborhood Business District to B4 Major Commercial District to establish continuity with the adjacent properties also owned by the applicant in preparation for future sale or development of the property. Here's the location of the property on the county map.
And here's the locator map and the site map. To the north is the B4 Major Commercial District, as well as to the west is also B4. To the south and the east is B2 Neighborhood Business District, with commercial land use as well as residential and vacant land use. So the properties to the north and west are also owned by the applicants. The property to the north is vacant. The property to the west is Bay RV Sales. These are the photos of the subject property and adjoining properties. Unless information to the contrary is revealed at the public hearing, staff feels the application should be recommended for approval. Here are the factors staff analyzes in rezonings. This request met 8 of the factors, with a couple of questionable or unknown. Again, the uses adjacent to the subject property are commercial, residential, or vacant. Staff feels the requested change is compatible with the development pattern of the surrounding areas. And a Planning District 22 adopted a zoning map in 2002. And then to the south, Planning District 33 also adopted zoning in 2002. Since this time, there have been several upzonings in the immediate area from B2 to B3 or B4. And then, does the proposed use better conform to the master plan? So the subject property is located at a neighborhood central node, which would encourage the existing B2 zoning with small-scale shops and local serving business and retail land use. However, it is situated on US Highway 98, which is identified as a growth corridor, which is a key factor in assessing development suitability, which may support more of an upzoning in this area. And then staff is unaware of any planned public improvements. And then as for the traffic, the future development of the site is uncertain. However, if a commercial project is proposed, a commercial turnout permit from AlDOT will be required. Staff also memorializes that US Highway 98 requires a highway construction setback of 125 feet for any proposed development fronting the road. And then staff believes this is a logical expansion to adjacent zoning and land uses and does not anticipate any adverse impacts on the rest of the factors. Here are the agency comments, further memorializing the highway construction setback on US Highway 98. And again, the rezoning request is from B2 to B4, and staff is recommending approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, anybody on the Planning Commission have a question for staff? Okay. I only have one person signed up, Chris Howell. Do you need to speak? All right, let me ask, does anybody on the Planning Commission have a question for the applicant? Okay. And with that, I have no one else signed up, so I'm going to close the public hearing. I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Is that Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Fletcher's made a motion. We recommend to the County Commission for approval of the rezoning. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burnett seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing for case number Z24-43, the Wild property. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Okay, Ms. Rhodes?
All right, this is case Z2443, the Wild property. The request is to rezone 11 acres from RSF2 to RR for an additional commercial building, and staff's recommendation is denial. Here's the location of the subject property within the county. The property is located in Planning District 14. It is located south of State Highway 104 and east of County Road 49 near the town of Silver Hill. The current use is commercial, The applicant is Apex Contracting Services, and the owner is William Wild. The applicant's request, they would like to rezone to allow for an additional commercial building on the property. Here's the locator map and the site map. The subject property is surrounded by RSF2, which is residential single-family district zoning, and the adjacent land uses are residential, agricultural, and vacant. Here's the factors that staff reviews in a rezone. They've only met 3 of the 11 factors. And staff's recommendation is denial unless there's information that's contrary that's revealed in the public hearing. Here's the subject property and the adjacent property images. Here's some agency comments, the current zoning requirements, as well as the proposed zoning requirements. This is the zoning use table, and a fitness center or gym is the closest use to what is being proposed, which is an indoor training facility. In terms of the staff analysis and findings, so although commercial uses currently exist on the subject property, the commercial or the proposed commercial addition would increase the non-conforming use, which is incompatible with the existing development pattern and the zoning of nearby properties, which is primarily residential. In terms of changes upon which the original zoning designation was based, Planning District 14 adopted zoning about 1 year ago, and there have been no zoning changes in the area since. In terms of the proposed zoning better conforming to the master plan, the proposed request does not conform to the master plan, and the requested land use would be better suited for an area designated as high-density development potential for commercial use. In terms of affecting traffic, the proposed commercial addition would likely have adverse effect on traffic patterns or congestions in the area because the area around it is primarily residential. And as mentioned earlier, the requested land use would be better suited for commercial zoning in an area of high-density development potential. Staff believes there's no timing is not a factor for this request and does not anticipate any adverse impacts or environmental conditions. However, this would be analyzed during the commission site plan and plan unit development process. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, anybody in the Planning Commission have questions for staff? Okay. I have no one signed up to speak on this item, correct?
I'm the contractor and this is the owner here.
Okay, I'll let you, since you guys are the applicant, I'll let you speak.
So the current use of the property, it has a storage facility in the front, and then it has a metal building already there called the Hot Box, and it's a baseball development for kids. And the building is just an extension of that original building. There's not enough room. They've outgrown it. The kids are coming down there anyways. There's just no place to put them. There's 8 acres back there to work with. So we're not particularly squeezing anything in that's going to affect the areas around it. And also the neighbor to the right, it's also a commercial property as well. It was done like ours was before this land was rezoned. And I guess it's worth noting that the neighbor to the right's got no issue with what we're doing. And his land and Josh's land go all the way to the back. So it's just an extension of what's already there to house more kids. And about 2 blocks away, they're building another big subdivision area, which he's probably going to get even more kids that want to sign up and be in the facility to train baseball.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
So you're extending what's already there. Is there a baseball facility there?
There is. There's already a baseball facility there. There's batting cages, and they're all filled up all times from 7 to 5 p.m. It's maxed out. We can't fit anymore. And like I said, we've got 8 acres back there to work with, and the building that we're suggesting is about 9,000 square feet. Any other questions? Okay. Did you want to speak? I don't. Okay. Excuse me. All right, that's all I had signed up to speak then. I'll close the public hearing. Ms. Burnett?
I have a question for
Okay.
staff.
Go ahead.
It's non-conforming now,
Correct.
but if it's rezoned, will it still be non-conforming?
No, this is why they need to rezone, so
Okay,
that they
because I
can.
heard non-conforming, so,
Right.
okay,
That's
thank
correct.
you.
You're welcome.
And if rezoned, it would trigger a commission site plan approval for
That's
any
correct.
improvements. Yeah, I see, you're just looking at the aerial and Google Street View, several things that would have to be addressed through a commission site plan.
It was there before zoning, so it stays
Yeah,
as is,
so
non-conforming.
if it's, right now, it's illegal non-conforming. So the use,
Right.
the intensive uses there can continue on as long as they don't close for more than 12 months. That's not an issue. The whole purpose of, having legal non-conforming is not to allow the intensification of that non-conformity. And if you look at this area, even though there's several things that were being used as commercial property before zoning came into effect, the entire area is zoned residential. It's all residential uses around it, with the exception of one or two things. So, and we understand that what the current intent is, but once it's rezoned, then anything in that zoning district can be used there. So, when you look at rezonings, you have to look at more than what's just the current or proposed use. Then you open up all those other uses that may not be as compatible with what the current use is of the surrounding area. So that's what you have to judge when you have a situation like this.
Jay, remind me, what are the buffer requirements between RR and RSF2?
That's a good question.
Put you on the spot there, I'm sorry. And I'm planner's worst nightmare speculating here, so. I think just looking at it, it potentially opens up a whole can of worms through a commission site plan approval of a lot that has to be fixed on site.
So, and on that point, should the rezoning be approved by the county commission, when you intensify that current non-conforming use, that means that all of the facilities have to come up into conformance with the current regulations, which means parking, buffers, landscape, anything that is now triggered by zoning is now triggered for even the current uses. So Brandon, you're right, there's a lot of things that would.
So if there are buildings that are in buffer areas, they got to remove them?
Well, we dealt with this on some previous applications where there would have to be some specific variances given for existing buildings to remain in buffer areas, and that would be part of the commission site plan review with this board. I think we've dealt with that multiple times over the last couple of months, but.
So have you guys met so that they understand some of the things that they may be confronted with if we did in fact approve the rezoning, and understand what some of these long-term, do they know some of the things they may have to do if they do move forward? It won't just be adding to, they've got things they've got to correct under the existing.
Correct.
Okay, so
Yes.
you guys somewhat know.
This will be my third or fourth one, so I got a little experience.
Okay. All right, any other questions for staff? Did you get your answer, by the way?
I did not get the buffer answer,
I
but
didn't- I didn't hear it.
I'm satisfied with his response
I think
otherwise.
he sidetracked you there. He deflected.
He answered the question without answering the question.
Yeah, so it depends on the use in terms of the buffer, but just looking at RSF2 against RR, there would be no buffer. But again, it depends on what the use is on the property.
This is good staff.
Our zoning allows some pretty intense uses. It's a very broad category, but some are kind of like a light industrial almost.
So that's kind of why I wanted to bring that to your attention, that RR is, outside of our commercial districts, is probably one of the most allowable districts that we have in our zoning ordinance.
Yeah,
Now, everything has to go through a commission site plan, but it allows a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. It's not having the full zoning table. I don't have my book here. But I mean, everything on this page is, outside of two things that I don't think would be an issue,
So-
our condition, our site plan.
Let me ask this, does it in fact improve the issue in the area by approving the rezoning and making them come up to code, coming up? I mean, some things that maybe are non-conforming now, unless we're just going to turn around and grant variances and leave it like it is, which is not really fixing the problem.
I mean, I think with the current use, and, pre-existing zoning, it's, the legal non-conforming is not causing any issues there per se. So what we need to do is just remember what the legal non-conforming section is about, is just making sure that those can continue to operate as they were without intensifying and creating more of a non-conformity, more of a non-compatibility with the zone or surrounding uses. So what's going on the property now, what's been the property being used for now, is not really causing any issues, but it also doesn't mean that it's advisable to rezone the entire property to one of the most allowable districts in the zoning ordinance.
Well, I guess what I was thinking is if we don't do anything, if we deny the request, then buffers don't come, they just continue to operate. If we did approve the rezoning, they come in for a site plan, we then can impose buffers that would improve some situations that's what I guess I'm getting at.
It would be my opinion that the current, the current nonconformity is not as imposing on the surrounding uses as rezoning the property.
I can see it both ways, that's the reason.
Is there not, because I don't have my list in front of me either, is there not another zoning designation that would fit this, that would not open up the long-term quote-unquote intensification that the staff seems to be concerned about? Because what I'm having a little heartache about is, curtailing the growth of a small business. And that's distasteful at best.
This was the one that they recommended that we rezone.
So, because that's, and the applicant's right, there's the way the zoning ordinance is currently written with the permitted uses, that this is a warehouse use or that's another fitness center, which is kind of a warehouse type use. This is one of the few zoning districts outside of a true commercial zoning district that you can allow to do that. Now, in the future, should we consider looking at some revisions to see if we can allow that kind of use in some other districts? We can, but the way it currently is written, this is the least intense zoning district that would allow that use. Yeah.
Well, then I can't. Then frankly, to piggyback off of Steve, I can't disagree with Steve that, at a minimum, not curtailing the small business, but placing the burden on them to come up to code, for lack of a better way to put it, seems to be the best middle ground.
Yeah, I would just, if you look at the review criteria we all have to look at every month, this is one of the times that they don't meet any of them.
Yep.
And again, it's really not so much about the current use and what this applicant's proposing, it's once it's rezoned, and that, all those uses are now allowed.
No, I get it. In fact, I understand exactly why you would recommend denial. I get that. But I've noticed in the past, we have approved things because it actually improved a situation, and that would be the only reason we would do it. But
and you're right, and that a lot of cases, getting it into conformity is an improvement, and I think this is one of the rare cases where the existing use is actually it's not really impacting neighbors, it's not doing anything, so leaving it as it is probably the better option.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. Sorry, under RSF 2 for conditional uses, outdoor recreation uses is allowed as a conditional use. Would a batting cage be outdoor recreation? I know he's trying to do something with a warehouse, but.
Well, I mean, if it's indoor, it's not outdoor recreation. So, I mean, if they wanted to put outdoor batting cages, that would not cause any issues. But the fact that it's an indoor facility, it creates this fitness center designation.
Mr. Waters?
On the building, the existing building, the batting cages there, isn't that is the big building that has the big bright spotlights on the side of the building? That's right. Up until the late hours of the night that you can't help but see when you drive down 49.
I think you
To
were
me,
making,
to me,
you were making a point.
To me, it's an eyesore. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And when I look at this, 7 out of the 10 things on the factors say no. So. The lights are blinding when you drive down 49. And I mean, it's just, you can't help, you're distracted. It causes you to be distracted when you're driving down
They are
there
bright.
at whatever time that the building's open at night. And you just see, we see bright white. That's all you see.
All right. And we've had a lot of discussion on this one, so I'm going to, does anybody else have a question? All right, I'm going to entertain a motion on this one. I think I've closed the public hearing, so.
I'm going to make the motion to deny.
All right, so Mr. Waters is making a motion that we recommend to the county commission to deny the request. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Stratiger, second the motion. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, all in favor of the motion to deny?
Aye.
We got two. All opposed?
Opposed.
No.
All right, we're going to do a roll call.
Mr. Bias?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Mullet? Mr. Seibert?
No.
Ms. Stratiger?
Yes.
Ms. Burnett?
No.
Mr. Fletcher?
No.
Mr. Waters?
No.
I think yours is yes, Mr. Waters.
Just be sure, let's go back. I want to make sure everybody understands this. Your vote for yes
I'm sorry.
is, no, I want to make sure everybody else understands. If you were voting yes, you were voting to deny the request. Does everybody understand that?
I'm voting to deny the request.
Okay.
That's my motion.
All right, so that was all right? So
I have the sheets,
okay,
and the motion fails.
okay. So do we need a motion to, no, that motion,
That motion failed, so you could entertain another motion.
okay? New motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we recommend the county commission approve RR zoning on this parcel.
Okay, so Mr. Cyber's making a motion that we recommend approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Bullock is seconding the motion. Any questions on the motion now? Everybody understands, so if you're voting on it this time, you're voting that we recommend to the county commission to approve the rezoning. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Is that 3 noes? Mr. Waters, are you still a no?
Yes.
Okay.
I said
Sounds
no.
like just the, okay. We good with that? Okay, so this will now go to the county commission with a recommendation from this planning commission that they approve the rezoning. Now, they'll have a public hearing just like we did here, and so you'll have opportunity, if you need to speak to them the same way you spoke to us, you can, and they'll make the final decision then. Okay? All right, with that, do we need to take a break? Is everybody good to go on? Sounds like good to go on. All right. We'll open the public hearing now for case number Z24-44, the Fletcher property. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Rhodes, yours also?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is case D2444, the Fletcher property. The request is to rezone 22 acres from BCZ to B2 for an event venue. Here's the location of the subject property within the county. The subject property is located in Planning District 39. It is located south of County Road 32 and east of State Highway 181 in Fairhope. The current use is commercial. The applicant is Dawn Fletcher and the owners are Rick and Dawn Fletcher. They would like to rezone to B2 to allow for an existing event venue on the property that was installed prior to the adoption of zoning to be expanded. Here's the locator map and the site map. The adjacent zoning to the north is RV2, Recreational Vehicle Park District, and BCZ. To the south, we have RSF1 and RA zoning. To the east is BCZ, and to the west is B1 and B2 zoning. And the adjacent land uses include residential, vacant, and agricultural. Here are the factor summaries that we look at when we analyze a rezone. And this particular request meets most of the factors other than some questionable ones in terms of traffic and health, safety, and wellness. So unless information is contrary, that is to the contrary is revealed at the public hearing, staff believes this application should be recommended for approval. Here's the subject property image as well as the adjacent property images. Agency comments. The current zoning requirements for BCZ, as well as the proposed zoning requirements for B2. Here's our zoning use table, and an event venue is an approved use with commission site plan approval. The subject property, as mentioned earlier, is currently zoned BCZ. The surrounding properties are zoned commercial and residential, and due to the proximity of the property to the commercial area, staff believes the requested change is compatible with the existing development pattern and the zoning of nearby properties. So Planning District 39 adopted zoning about 1 year ago. The existing winery on the property was constructed before zoning and has been functioning as a winery ever since. While there have been no zoning changes within the vicinity since zoning was established, the expansion of the existing use on the property would warrant a change in the conditions upon which the original zoning designation was based. Staff believes that this property conforms to the master plan. It is situated in a neighborhood center node, which supports B2 zoning. And staff is not aware of any planned public improvements in the area. In terms of traffic, the site contains a winery that predates zoning. They would need to have a commission site plan approval for this expansion of the event venue. And with that CSP approval, they would have to submit an event management plan. And within this plan, they would have to have a thorough explanation of traffic management before, during, and after any event. Staff believes timing is not a factor for this request, nor does it anticipate any adverse impacts or environmental conditions. And as mentioned before, a commission site plan approval would be required for the event venue. That also includes an event management plan that explains how they manage traffic and then how anything else will be mitigated. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have one question where this event venue would be allowable in B1 or RSFE. Is this subject property resided upon? Is it a residential, is it used as residential now?
No, sir, it's commercial.
So no one lives there. Okay, so RSFE would not be an option. What about B1 instead of B2? Was that considered?
Well, they're located near a neighborhood center node, and B2 is supported by that neighborhood center node.
Did you have a question? Oh, all right, any other questions for staff?
Does, and I see the use is approved through a site plan, commission site plan approval?
That's correct.
Would any expansion trigger that? So would we see this case again?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, I have one signed up. Alexander Owen, did you want to speak? No, this is part of the honor. Okay. All right, anybody have any questions for Alexander?
I do have
Okay.
a question. The expansion, is it open-aired or enclosed?
It'll be enclosed.
Could you come on up to?
It is planned to be enclosed, similar construction to the building that we have already built for the winery, but it'll have outdoor seating as well, like patios and stuff like that. It'll be for weddings and larger events like that.
Do you have hours of operation?
Yes.
Right now, what are they, please?
Thursday, it's 11 to 9 p.m., Friday, Saturday, 11 to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 11 to 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think the best way to say this, of course, we're handling it, we're just dealing with the zoning. If they choose to come back with a venue, Diane's already hitting on, and just so that you'll know, I'll just say it this way, this planning commission is very sensitive to venues. I can only tell you that the issues we've had. If you come back with a venue, be prepared. It's just there are going to be a lot of questions and a lot of issues to address. But that's not really for tonight. So I think Diane was giving you a little preview of what you can expect if that's the direction you end up going. All right. That's all I had signed up to speak. With that, I'll close the public hearing. Any other questions? All right. Likewise, this is a recommendation to the county commission, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll recommend approval of the rezoning request.
All right. Mr. Davis has made a motion that we recommend approval of the rezoning request. I have a second.
Second.
All right, I think I heard Mr. Bias. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, this time we'll open the public hearing for case number Z24-45, the Wise property. Anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? You don't look like Calla, but go ahead.
Yes, I'm presenting this case for Calla. Z2445, the Wise property. This is a rezoning from RSF2 to RA, rural agricultural. This is located in Planning District 15. The subject property is located on the west side of Caney Creek Drive. The total is 26 acres. The applicant would like to rezone for agricultural uses. The rezoning request, we are recommending approval. Here's the subject property, the locator map and the site map. Here's a picture of the subject property, the adjoining property to the north, the adjoining property to the east. The factor summary, it meets all the factors. The subject property is currently zone RSF2, residential single family. The nearby parcels are zoned RA, RSF1, and RSF2. The uses adjacent to the subject property are residential, agricultural, and vacant. Therefore, staff feels that the request change is compatible with the development pattern in the area. Planning District 15 was adopted on August the 1st, 2006. Since this area was zoned, there have been a few rezonings in the immediate area. It appears the subject property was intended for a future phase of Caney Creek subdivision. When the zoning was established as the property under the subdivision's name and remained until 2023, and then the new owner intends to use the subject property as a homestead for agricultural uses and residential use. The future land use map, the subject property is conservation development, potential area, and ideal conservation preservation area. The conservation development potential areas are suitable for all of the land uses described in the ideal conservation preservation areas. So while the proposed zoning is not requesting OR or CR, an RA zoning is closer to conforming with the master plan than the RSF2 zoning. Staff is unaware of any planned public improvements, and staff does not perceive the proposed zoning and its permitted uses that would adversely affect the traffic. The proposed zoning RA allows for agricultural uses and is consistent with the adjacent development. And the permitted uses in RA include agricultural and residential uses, so staff believes that this is a logical expansion. And staff believes that there are no conflicts regarding timing in this request and does not anticipate any adverse effects on environmental conditions or historic resources. However, the applicant should not assume that the available land uses in RA are immediately available without conducting a wetland delineation or obtaining a zoned land disturbance. And staff does not anticipate any adverse impacts in health, safety, and welfare of the county or the vicinity. So we are recommending approval unless information to the contrary is revealed at the public hearing.
Okay, any questions for staff? I have no one signed up to speak on this item. I'm going to close the public hearing. No questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval.
All right, Mr. Bullock's made a motion to approve. Have a second? Oh, you have a question, Diane?
I do have a question. That's okay. We can
Well,
get the
let's
motion.
get the second on the motion first. Do I have a second on the motion? This is a recommendation to approve.
Seconded.
All right, Mr. Seibert has seconded the motion. Now, question.
It says,
Go ahead.
is the applicant here?
I don't think there was anybody signed up to speak for this
Pardon me?
case. I don't think that there was anybody signed up to speak
No
for
one's
this
here to
case.
sign up. Is the applicant here even though you didn't sign up? Apparently not, Diane.
Did they indicate what agricultural use they were looking at?
Not that I'm aware of. They just wanted
I
to be
will
able
say
to
there's a lot
farm
of
it.
agricultural uses that might not be appropriate at this location.
Selena said that they wanted to have horses on this property.
Do what?
Selena said they wanted to have horses and chickens on the property, and they couldn't do that underneath the RSF2 zoning, so that's why they're asking for the RA.
Okay. Probably to your point, isn't it, Diane? Neighbors are going to love chickens. All right, so we do have a motion on the floor and a second to recommend approval. Any other questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. One in opposition. All right, let's go ahead and do our last rezoning, and if you need to take a break before we do our subdivisions, we can. Let's do this one. I'll open the public hearing for case number Z24-46. This is the Bed and Blinds, Inc. property. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Boykin?
All right, this is a request to rezone from RR, Rural District, to B3, a Commercial District, to be compatible with the current use. The subject property is located in Planning District 15, on the north side of County Road 64 and east of County Road 54 west. The subject property contains 3.24 acres. It is currently used as commercial, and the applicant's request is rezoning. They want to rezone to conform to the current use. Here you can see the subject property as RR. To the north and west is RA, and across 64 is RSFE. The property to the east is zoned RR and is used as storage units. Here are the factors we looked at. They met all except for number 3, which was questionable. Here, the Flume, the future land use, has this area as moderate development potential area, and it is not far from an urban mixed-use center. Staff does not see any conflicts with the existing planned public improvements. This is an area where County Road 64 will be widened, and staff has recommended approval from the rezoning of RR to B3.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, I have one signed up in support, Joseph Thetford.
Good evening. I'm here with Chasen & Chasen firm. We're here on behalf of the applicant. The main thing we're doing, we don't have any present plans of development. We were doing some other work for the client and noticed that the structure there is in, one corner of the property. RR, while it has more uses available to it, in it, it's a larger square footage. And so with RR, this property can never be subdivided. And there's a large amount of it that's not able to be used right now. And so that's why we're here making the request, and appreciate your consideration.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the applicant's representative here? Thanks, sir. All right, that's all I had signed up to speak. So with that, I'll close the public hearing. If no questions, I'll entertain a motion. This will be a recommendation to the county commission. All right, Mr. Davis made the motion that we recommend approval. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Seibert seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that's all of our rezoning requests. We've got 3 subdivisions. Do you want to keep going? Sounds like everybody's good. All right. We will open the public hearing now for case number PUD 24-10, the Southern Path RV Camp. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Waters?
All right, Commissioners. As you said, this is case PUD 2410, Southern Path RV Camp. This is a request for a final site plan approval for a 36-unit RV park. The owner and developer is Mr. Jeffrey Paul Hartley, and the engineer of record and applicant for this project is Mr. Chris Lieb. The subject property is located west of State Highway 59 in the Stapleton area. This is located in unzoned Planning District 7. As I mentioned, they are proposing 36 units. The traffic study was not required due to the lot count. A drainage narrative was prepared and stamped by the engineer of record, and it was accepted by the Baldwin County permit engineer. Although, when looking at the Baldwin County aerial imagery, potential wetlands were shown on the property, the applicant has provided a wetlands delineation that did not show any wetlands, and then that the site was all uplands. There was no response from the local fire authority, and the applicant has provided an applicable letter signed and stamped by the engineer regarding the fire flow. Here is your aerial imagery. The RV park is 2 parcels. Here's your proposed site plan, and a little bit more cropped and enlarged the details, showing where your dumpster and clubhouse for amenities are located. Here are your capacity report and waiver requests from the utility companies. Baldwin County Sewer Service is the sewer treatment provider, and the sewer treatment will be treated at the Malbus wastewater facility. All right, staff is recommending approval with the following specific conditions. Provided that the applicant will give us an approved right-of-way permit or applicable from AlDOT for the access onto Highway 59 prior to applying for a construction plans review to be reviewed by the Baldwin County Planning and Zoning staff. And the applicant will also apply and record the subdivision exemption verification to combine the 2 parcels proposed for this project. Although this project is located in an unzoned area, neighbors adjacent to the RV park have expressed concerns about the noise and the privacy with this RV park, and they have requested that the applicant provide some sort of landscape buffer along the boundary of the property. The property currently is fully vegetated, so if the applicant wishes to abide by the request of the neighbors and voluntarily leave those buffers of those vegetations, that would be nice. But again, this is unzoned, and we cannot request that they do that. It has to be a voluntary request. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Is access to the 5 lots in the back through the RV park?
Yes, so currently, let me try to bring up the aerial here. Let me try to see if I can zoom into this. So you can see here currently, I think it's Timberland Trace exists is here, and that's how it's being accessed for the parcels. So with the RV park, the applicant was going to shift the easement a little bit so that they kind of come in a straight line instead of going around the RV park, but him or the applicant can probably explain that a little bit better to you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, Chris, you want to come on up? Seems that way.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Yes, there is going to be an easement recorded to those lots, and the Timberland Trace is a E911 road currently, and we've talked with all the neighbors, and they're in agreement with this plan.
Chris, I'm sure you looked at it, so you can tell me why. Is there a reason? Is it topographical problems of not accessing the site where that median is on 59? Come in on the south side and then run up the west side of that behind the pond and tie back in?
So yes, it is very steep to get down there. So it is a topographical challenge. We've sent this to AlDOT. We have not had a response from them yet as to, any of their concerns or wants or needs. But as far as, it would be tough to get a 10% road in there all the way up
Which would
the
be
hill.
tough for the RVs.
Right, and
But it seems
10%
like
is.
the RVs are going to have a big problem turning north, coming out of that site. I don't see how, you can't cross there. You'll have to go further down south and find some way to turn around and come back
Correct.
if you want to go north.
Correct.
They can't put one that close. You already got, you can move it. All right, anybody else have any questions for Mr. Lee?
Yeah, there's no request, but is the applicant willing to leave the buffer zones?
So we haven't really talked about the north and west sides of the property yet, but we have spoken about leaving the trees along the right-of-way to keep the buffer from the road to the RV park. And there's really nothing slated in that 30-foot buffer. There might be a little grading that we have to do, so we might have to take some of the trees out, but I'm sure they'd be willing to leave as many trees as possible to and still keep this plan, you know. I mean, it just makes sense that, you know, you have to pay less money to take down trees, so there's no point in taking them down anyway, so.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a few people signed up. Sarah Henry? Sarah? Gave up. Sylvia Stewart? Or Stewart? I may not say. Okay, they got a Y on the end here, so that's how I'm trying to pronounce it the way they gave it to me.
Thank you all for giving me a chance to come and speak. I am a neighbor. I live directly across from this development. My husband and I have been there over 20 years. We have a residence there. And I am opposing this development. And the reasons are, I feel it will devalue my property, number one, and I don't think it's going to add anything to my community because if you have been to the site, and I don't know if you have or not, Mr. Engineer, thank you for your presentation, was explaining about the buffer zone. I live across the street from it. There is no buffer zone. I mean, it's just leveled. If you were to drive by there, you're just going to see dirt, like a dirt pit. It looks beautiful on paper, and I hope that if they're approved, that they will do everything that they've got on this map that the engineer has. It will be beautiful if they do. I am a little bit doubtful of that because I don't really know who might stop and stay at this place. It's only 20 more minutes on down to the beach, and I'm thinking if I have a beautiful mobile home or a camper, I would go on down there rather than parking here and, you know, in the middle of a small community, but not a lot to do, and then you're going to hear all the gun noise from the gun range. It's very loud. I live across the street from it, so I can tell you I can't visualize a happy little family wanting to park their camper and sit out there and listen to that, you know, every day. So the other thing is the traffic. It's already very difficult to come out of Trawick Road and get on Highway 59. It's congested. It looks like Airport Boulevard. So I'm concerned about that. And then again, I know these investors are going to put a lot of money in this, and I'm wondering who will fill this place for them. I'm concerned that the people that might choose to stay there would be more transient and that they will not have any vested interest in my neighborhood. I hope I'm wrong about that, but I'm concerned. That is a concern that I have. We're a quiet little community, and we really don't have a police force out there. So if there are problems, who's going to police it? Who's going to vet the people who come in and out of there? So those are my main concerns. And it was mentioned that the property owners had been notified or spoken to. I can tell you, I've spoken to almost all the people around it. I'm the only one that received their notification from this board that I'm aware of. And I've talked to most of them. And they had no idea that this is what was planned. to go across the street there. So I may still have some of them with me, but we're late and they may have left us. But you did have a lot of concern, and I believe a lot of them have reached out to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Houston Lampkin.
How's it going? I'm Houston Lampkin, so we own the 8.5 acres in the back of what is now Timberland Trace, and I'm not opposing the idea. It's his property, he can do what he wants, but we were promised to get a 10-foot tall privacy fence down Timberland Trace so we don't come down our driveway every day and see RVs and all that. But our main concern is the old right-of-way is where our water lines run, and so now that the right-of-way is officially Timberland Trace, we're going to have to reroute our water lines. We don't know if we're going to have to do that or them, because it goes right down the middle of what is now their property. And along with that, one of ours got busted, and we've been without water at our livestock pen for about a month now. And so has the other property owners. Her name's Misty, that lives right next to it. So the main concern is the water lines, and they're moving our water meters, so we don't know if we're going to have to do that, if we're going to have to dig the trenches again and rerun it, or if they're going to let us tap in. And also the traffic concern that everyone else brought up, just trying to get a pickup truck out on 59 right there. With the turn, you have to go down, go to a turnaround to go north, and there's not really a whole lot of room for an RV to go. And just trying to turn on the Timberland Trace with a RV, they're going to have to widen the road, and we were wanting to know if it'd be a double lane, so when I'm coming out of my house, I'm not backed up by RVs coming in and out of that road. But besides water lines and the widening of the road, it doesn't affect us as long as he has the 10-foot tall fence, because right now the land is flat. There's maybe 3 trees standing along it, so it's flat across there. There's no trees buffering anything. But that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I also had, I think I did I get Joseph Brown? All right, come on up.
Mr. Chair, committee, pleasure. Short statement. My property is bordered on the north and east side by the proposed RV park. The Timberland Trace runs straight in front of my property. I had this nice thing read, but you got misled on something. When you go down Timberland Trace, suppose there's a 10-foot buffer zone there. That's probably already been leveled already. There is no buffer zone. There is one small triangle of trees down the road left. That is my property. That's not theirs. The landowner did say he would put a 10-foot privacy fence up. I would ask it be considered and mandated that he does do the privacy fence and put some type of fast-growing vegetation. Because before, we had 8 acres of pine trees between us and the gun range. Big, tall timber. They cut the timber out. Those logs were 100 years old. Virgin timber looked like almost. Now it's flat piles of dirt. The gunfire is, we used to hear it, you know, it was there. Now you know it. With no buffer zone in there, it's very, very discomforting. Just say that. I'm not opposed to the RV park. I understand the property is unzoned, unresidential. My wife and I bought this place for our future last home. We've got $150,000 invested in 2.9 acres with water wells, power, septic tanks, purchase of the property, roads improvements. And now we pretty much have to wait and see how the RV park turns out to see if we stay or do not stay. Now, we bought it for the seclusion, for the privacy. Now you can see us from Highway 59. It just didn't happen. I understand his property, he has money invested also, but I wasn't going to be this against it. And I'm still neutral, but I'm leaning toward the against it side now by you being misled by the buffer zone. That property's been logged already, and it's gone. So, that being said, I'm all for neighbors working with neighbors. I'm willing to work with it, live with it. Thank you for your time, your consideration. If you have any questions for me about the property, what it actually looks like, please ask it now.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, that's all I had signed up to speak on this one. Did I miss anybody? Chris, did you want to come back up and address anything? What about the water line? Can you speak to that? I mean, are you going to be on the side of replacing or moving a water line that?
So there's slated a new utility and egress easement, and we're placing new utility lines in that easement, which connects to these, it goes down Timberland Trace, essentially. So we'll work with North Baldwin Utilities to make sure that, the water line that runs across their property can get relocated to Timberland Trace. Because we're going to put a new one in there anyway.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking on my map, it looks like it's wooded, but I'm hearing it's not. So has there been land disturbance occurring?
I hadn't been up there in a while. When I did go up there, it was full of trees, but apparently it's, the loggers have gone in there, according to the neighbors, and cut down the trees.
So if there's only 3 pine trees, quote,
Right.
in the buffer area, you're not going to add any trees to the buffer areas?
I mean, I guess technically we're not required to because it's an unzoned piece, but I understand about being a good neighbor as well. So, I was not aware that the logging operation went on, and, so, I mean, so I don't know. I haven't been told that there's any plans to plant any more trees, but there may be. I'm not sure. They haven't spoken to me about that.
Well, I'm a bit concerned because it appears on a satellite image that there are trees, and now we're hearing they're not. And if it wouldn't be an issue because the buffer's already there. But if the buffer's been removed prior to this application, then what do you do?
So I guess technically it's not a buffer, it's more of a building setback that is not actually required to be a landscaped, but, if it be your wish to have something planted in there, we certainly can.
I would wish that, if we can make that happen.
I have a question.
Yes,
Do you know
ma'am.
anything about the 10-foot fence that's been promised by the applicant?
To be honest, it's the first I'm hearing about it. They've been talking to their neighbors up there about this, I guess, and I just wasn't made aware of the fence. I mean, if you want us to put that on the plan as a condition of approval, that can be your wish as well.
I have a curiosity question. What is this little bit that's not part of, I guess it's on the east side of the subject property, right? What is that what is that?
It's an old tower. I think it's either a cell phone tower, an old cell phone tower, or a lookout tower. It's owned by somebody else.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I had signed up to speak, so I don't think I have, but I'll close the public hearing now. Just a reminder, this is unzoned, so think we have to be careful about conditions we put that aren't allowed in our
It is,
subregs.
and this is a very unique situation where we have an access easement that's going through the development property. So, obviously, we would have to, or this board would have to consider, that as part of the recommendation, however you feel about, getting that easement recorded. I do think that there are some stipulations on how that easement is done that this board could probably consider. The water line is another good situation, because again, this is a little different than a normal, if that were a platted right-of-way going through there, it'd be a different story. But here we are, we have an easement that has to be dedicated as part of this development plan to access those lots to the west. So I feel like there's enough there with that stipulation that there could be some additional requirements, part of that easement being replatted in the agreement with the neighboring, that there could be some requirements for the fence and landscaping that this board probably could put on that stipulation, just simply because this is an easement, not a right-of-way. So it's a little bit of a different situation than we normally face. So with that, I would just say, I do believe that should the board want to consider something like that, that it would be appropriate to add as part of the condition of the easement being moved. But I would try to be as specific as possible with your recommendation.
But if I'm understanding you correctly, Jay, those requirements would apply to the easement only. It would not require to the bordering the entire.
The bordering,
all of that.
Chris is right. The bordering is very clear. It doesn't say anything about a buffer. It says a 30-foot setback. And that's all it is allowed. It doesn't. Our current regulations don't require any landscaping in that buffer. It just says a 30-foot setback. That's one of the issues we're well aware of. But the easement, Mr. Seibert, you're right. It could apply to the easement. We can ask that they consider putting some landscaping or leaving some vegetation in that 30-foot setback, but there's nothing in the regulation that would require them to do anything.
The existing easement goes over two parcels, correct? Parcel we're talking about here, and then a different parcel. So the new easement will shift entirely on the new parcel, or on the parcel before the development.
But in addition to the fence and landscaping discussion, the water line would certainly be appropriate to be part of that condition of that plat, dedicating that easement.
So this easement on the plat is not only access, it's a utility easement as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there a minimal footage on that easement? We're going to talk about ingress and utilities, so.
Yeah, I mean, it would need to be, I need to check what the regulations say, but it would need to be 60 feet, I mean, to be able to accommodate all those things.
On the outside.
Right.
I guess we don't get into the particulars of an existing easement, who has rights to it, who's responsible for.
No, it's another one of those situations like a deed restriction. It's a private easement between those property owners that we really don't have any say over, unless it's, on an existing easement, we don't have any say over, but when one's being dedicated as part of a development, and this is what we're doing, we're dedicating a new easement, there can be some additional considerations for that easement as part of the development plan.
Which could help the property in the back.
It could. That's right.
Yeah, I guess I was looking at it more from the restrictions that easements should have written in, that a lot of times that nobody thinks about who's responsible for maintaining, who has future rights to it. Here you're, probably didn't contemplate somebody developing and adding, this many. I appreciate what the person said. He's now got to get behind all these folks that maybe these are people that are in a workforce and this is where they park the RVs now. He's got to get in line to get out. That wasn't intended for that easement at the time, but what you're saying is that's not our
Well, it's not really, I mean, yes, they should be considered, but it's not really, those
Not-
things aren't for us, because here's why, is that if we required those things to be put in there, we can't enforce them. So we're requiring something that we really have once it's dedicated, it's no longer under our jurisdiction. So all we can do is make sure that it's being dedicated in the right way for the current situation. And then once that's done, it's done.
And to touch on that, on the comment about him being stuck, whether somebody's coming or going, this is a boulevard entrance, and the road is 24 feet wide, so hopefully if people are coming into the RV park, he should still have plenty of space to get around and exit. He should not be blocked by the RVs coming in or leaving, because it is a boulevard.
Well, I know we don't hang our hat very often on health, safety, and welfare, but I'm telling you, this having RVs come out here and not having a crossover.
And this is going to be a challenging access. I mean, we still have not, as Chris mentioned, we still have not heard from ALDOT or whether they're going to allow this access. And if they don't, this project won't move forward.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're right, and one thing that ALDOT is very good at evaluating is how they access in proximity to those crossovers. So I think that permitting process would definitely address any of those issues when ALDOT gets that piece of it.
Does the ALDOT situation rise to the level of tabling this, pending hearing from them?
I mean, it very well could, because that would substantially change.
Because it's a major issue.
Well, it could be next month, it could be 6 months from now, but I don't know how long it's been since Chris has tried to reach out to them, but I know that they could take their time, so we would not be able to say tabling to which month, because
I understand.
we just don't know.
I mean, ALDOT could look at this and say, you need to come in at the north side of the property.
Yeah.
And put a crossover in. I don't know what the spacing is there from I know
So-
there's a distance there you got to maintain.
So there's a
between-
little protection with, if the commission chooses to take action on this tonight. You know, one of the conditions of approval would be the ALDOT permit. So obviously, if that permit changes the layout or something, they would have to come back to the commission to readdress that. So,
And that's
Yeah.
added on here, that they can't submit for construction plans for our review until they have that approval.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. Since there's been land disturbance for the site plan, for the approval, is there a violation?
no, this is unzoned,
It's
and
unzoned,
timbering
yeah.
operations are allowed.
All right, I've forgotten whether I closed, so I'm closing the public hearing. If I do it twice, I did it twice. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion on this one. If you, well,
I make a motion that we table it to address, to get the ALDOT permit, see if the site plan changes, and to address with the applicant landscape buffer and the 10-foot fence that he's made communication with the neighbors about.
So just so I understand, are you requesting that they add the buffers and the fence, or are you asking for them to consider?
I think we would like the buffers and the fence along the
The
what's it
easement?
called, trace,
Mhm.
and then consider the rest of the property.
Okay. So you want landscaping and the privacy wood fence, not one or the other?
So when it comes back, we'll have the permit from ALDOT and these items addressed as well.
Okay.
And the utility easement, whatever that's going to be detailed as.
Okay.
okay. Strateger's made a motion to table. How far are you going to table it to?
Well, like I said, the ALDOT approval could take 1 month, it could take 6 months. I'm not sure. It's at their time.
They usually take minimum 4 months, usually 6 to 8. A couple months ago. They didn't give you
Well,
any
that's,
recommendations?
So, I mean, you could table it, this is a recommendation. You could table it till next month and to give us to see where they're at with ALDOT. And then at least in that time frame, the other questions about the easement and utilities and things like that can be addressed. So hopefully if there is anything outstanding, it would only be the ALDOT permit. And like I said, we have enough, kind of conditions that would make sure that ALDOT approves whatever before they go forward, so.
all right. So we have a motion to table, I have a second.
For 1
Second.
month, right?
For a month? Okay.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Burnett has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Did I hear 2 of you? Heard Michael, somebody else? All right, just one. All right, so the motion carries with 1 opposition to the motion. All right. Next item is we'll open public hearing for case number SPP 24-11 Blueberry Estates subdivision. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Mitchell?
All right, this is a preliminary plat application for a 6-lot subdivision. And the subject property is east of Blueberry Lane, south of County Road 48, and south of the town of Silver Hill. It's zoned RA, and the rezoning from RA to RSF1 just occurred recently. So there's 6 lots. One is fairly large, 42 acres, and the rest are all 1.15 acres. There are no potential wetlands that we could see, no major drainage improvements that were required at this point due to the lot size. So it just shows you its location, and you can see everything around. Now, the zoning map has changed, but they haven't updated yet, so this portion right here is now RSF1. So this is, the north is actually to the left side, so you can see the residential lots. This is along Blueberry, and then this is the large lot in the back. And there was a dirt pit we were not aware of when we began this review process, but then they have a code case there. They did because they didn't have the proper kind of turnout permit for the dirt pit. So that has been addressed. But because they changed the land use during the subdivision process, the county does not regulate dirt pits, but we do buffer different uses when you're creating a subdivision. So something that has not been fully addressed is the need for a landscape plan. They did show the landscape buffer, but the plan should have all the details about the species of trees, the spacing of the trees, that sort of thing. So that is the condition of approval, that we still require that. And so the blue, this is where there are existing trees, so that those would be left as a 75-foot buffer. The yellow, these are areas where there's some trees, but they need to be supplemented to meet the full 75 feet. And then the green, these are places that need to be planted. So you see some along the road, 20 feet along the road, and then 75 because it's adjacent to residential use. And this is just an image of what that looks like. And so the 2 conditions, one, what I just mentioned, a landscape plan must be submitted that meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And the 2, that we're requiring the buffers be installed and inspected before we issue the final plat. So you would be approving the preliminary plat, and then after the buffer is installed, we would administratively approve the final plat.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
I do have a question.
Okay.
They're just starting to use this area as a dirt pit?
Correct.
So is there a permit required?
Yes, that's all done by ADEM. Like I said, the county does not regulate dirt pits, and they do have the proper permits for the dirt pit.
Do you?
And the natural resource planner might be able to address this in more detail.
I don't know what question to ask. I'm just trying to figure out how big it will be when...
The permit's for less than 5 acres, but you can modify it at any time and go larger than that. Right, currently, it's permitted. What they're doing is authorized. Excavation of soils is allowed in every district and anywhere. So the state regulates it, we do not, so the buffers will be beneficial. So, and the ADEM does require a 50-foot buffer, so ours will just complement the 50.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I only have one. Mr. Smith, did you want to come up and say anything? You've been here long enough, you ought to say something.
My name's Hunter Smith with Smith Clark and Associates, and I'm really here just to answer any questions that y'all might have as far as how this thing's going and what the direction is.
Okay.
But it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the dirt pit is the only thing that made it complicated.
That's right.
Apparently. But other than that, the subdivision itself is pretty straightforward.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Smith? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I had signed up to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Nobody? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve with staff conditions.
All right, Mr. Bias made a motion to
Second.
approve. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Greg Seibert has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have one more. You ready to do it? Okay. So our last item, I'll open the public hearing for case SPP 24-20, which is Legacy Hill subdivision. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Waters?
All right, Commissioner, SPP 2420, Legacy Hills. This is a request for a preliminary plat approval for a 242-lot subdivision. The owner and developer is Bell Fountain Land Company, and the engineer of record is Mr. David DeGera. The subject property is east of the Baldwin County Beach Express and north of County Road 38 in unzoned planning district 18. As I mentioned, the request is for 242 lots. The applicant has provided all required utility letters from the various utility companies. A little bit of a property history here is the Planning Commission has seen this property earlier this year in January as a 2-lot subdivision for a BFLC Waterhole Branch, and they just decided to now turn it into what's being proposed. A traffic study was prepared and presented to staff for review by Cody Long, and traffic improvements are being required by staff as a result of the traffic study. Drainage calculations was prepared and reviewed by the permit engineer and accepted. As far as wetlands goes, there is a wetlands delineation that was provided, in jurisdictional wetlands are shown to be identified on the property, but no wetland fill is proposed, and the applicant has shown all of the appropriate wetland buffers for protection. The applicant did reach out to the Summerdale Fire Department, and their fire chief did respond with a couple of requirements that I believe the applicant has met those requests. An email was sent to the Baldwin County Board of Education, and no opposition was expressed. Let's see. All right, let me move this out of the way. Here is your aerial imagery of the subject property. Here is your proposed preliminary plat and a little bit of an enlarged design here. I have made a couple of comments here that for the applicant to indicate the phase lines between 1 and 2 are expected to be built out together, and then same for 3 and 4. The eastern and western phase 1 entrances will be constructed as part of phase 1. Phase lines will be adjusted to show 2 entrances in phase 1, and the phase line adjustments will be reflected in the construction plans. So right now, our subdivision regulations, we require 2 entrances once you have 30 lots. So that's why we are asking the applicant to construct both entrances at once, since phase 1 itself will exceed that total count of 30 lots. All right, here are your utility letters. Here's your capacity report for the sewer company and your fire flow for the water. Couple snippets here from the meeting between the applicant and AlDOT did require a right turn lane onto Beach Express to be installed. And I'm going to go through these specific conditions, but we are recommending approval, as I mentioned, with these following specific conditions. The developer shall install necessary transportation improvements as determined by the Baldwin County Highway Department and AlDOT. Turn lanes at Baldwin County Beach Express and County Road 38 shall be installed to the satisfaction of the county staff and AlDOT prior to the final plat approval of Phase 1. The Phase 1 western entrance from County Road 38, including an eastbound left turn lanes, as well as the eastern full movement entrance from County Road 38 for Phase 1 shall be installed to the satisfaction of county staff prior to the final plat approval of Phase 1. The CPR, which is Construction Plans Review, submittals shall reflect redrawn phase lines to the 2 entrances as part of Phase 1. A third entrance from County Road 38 serving future Phases 3 shall be constructed with Phase 3. And a fourth entrance from Brown Lane serving future Phase 4 shall be constructed with Phase 4. The applicant will also be required to include an approval AlDOT permit for all transportation improvements onto Beach Express required by AlDOT with the Construction Plans Review submittal for Phase 1. As approved, the development consists of 4 phases, totaling 242 lots. Any request for additional phases or changes to the name of the development shall require approval by the Baldwin County Planning Commission. Each phase shall require an individual construction plans review, a CPR submittal. And lastly, the final plat shall include a note indicating that the subject property is located within the vicinity of the U.S. Navy flight training facility for which flight operations may occur at any time on any day. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Yeah, Fabi, I've got a couple here.
Sure.
Can you go back to the diagram that shows the phasing of the subdivision?
Yes.
So I understand requiring Phase 1 and Phase 2 to have 2 constructed entrances.
Yes.
Do we not have that same expectation for 3 and 4 when they're built? Both 3 and 4 would be over 30 lots.
Yes. So once Phase 3, since they are on a separate entrance without connection to Phase 1 and 2, once they reach 30 lots, they will also have to have the second entrance.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And regarding that second entrance, so we'll have one entrance on County Road 38 in Phase 3 and one entrance in Phase 4 onto
Brown Lane.
Brown Lane.
Yes.
Does the traffic study recommend any improvements to Brown Lane between that entrance
No.
and 38?
No.
I'm looking.
Not onto Brown Lane. We are requiring improvements onto 38, but not to Brown Lane, right?
Okay. I'm looking and it looks fairly narrow and it's misaligned with 38 South. So that intersection just seems like could be dangerous potentially with a lot of traffic going through there.
I'll defer that to you, if you want.
Yeah, so right now, we did not look at realigning that road. We can talk further with the applicant, but as of right now.
Yeah, I definitely think that should be something on the table.
Is Brown Lane a paved road currently?
It is. It's a paved county maintained road with an 18-foot of pavement.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
I do have, is there open space requirement, usable open space requirements?
There's no open space requirement. This is an unzoned property.
Okay.
So, no.
Okay, any other questions? I have several signed up in support. David DeShire? Okay, just, come on up, David, because we got a question already.
Yeah. David, how far is it for Phase 1 and 2? How far is it from those two entrances to where DuBose Road hits 38? I'm just concerned about sight line because that top, the DuBose Road comes out at the top of the hill.
Yeah, that's actually something we did look at with sight distance for those. They exceed all the minimums for all the connections we have to 38. Obviously, that'll be something that we look at in great detail when we get to construction plans, but at the preliminary where we're at today, they meet the minimums.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. DeShire? Okay, thanks, sir. I had one person signed up in opposition, Charles Adams.
All right. We're located, well, if you'll go back to that, the lot, or the 20 acres south on the corner at that intersection. Been there 40 years. My concern, one, is traffic, because there is an offset, like you mentioned. The other is, if any of you guys ever heard of Thrill Hill?
Yeah.
Summerdale?
Yes. I've had a thrill there
They put
before.
a Band-Aid on it here a few years back, and in an attempt to shave it down, because we used to have cars coming up that hill and being airborne for 100 feet. I've pulled God only knows at the people out of their vehicles in the middle of the night hearing the big boom. And that first entrance on 3, the entrance for 3 and 4 at the bottom, if you'll back up one, please.
Sorry. Between the timer and the screen, they keep.
Is basically about halfway down that hill. So somebody pulling in and out of there at night and people coming over the top of that hill is going to be a problem.
All right. What else?
No, go ahead.
No, I just when you speak, I need to let him speak because, go ahead.
So that's one issue. And the other is, this is a tight-knit, small community. And we really didn't sign up for that. That's not why we spent the money to move out there. We spent the money to move out there to get away from that. And I know there's going to be development. I know there's got to be progress. And I say I oppose it. I could live with it if it's going to be buffered. For example, along 38 there on this front bottom edge, there are trees along the side of the highway. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be in the county or the right-of-way. It'd be nice if those could stay. Because I'm like the guy that talked earlier about he don't know whether he wants to move or not. If I get out, I go out on my garage and sit in my chair and drink my coffee every morning at 5 o'clock. I don't want to be looking at that from that position. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. And like the guys living down Brown Lane, they're the same way. You know, they bought that property to enjoy it and retire on it, whatever. But we need some protection. At least sightline would be a I'm sorry, I meant to take that off when I came up here. There needs to be protections for the community as a whole, I think. And down Brown Lane and, because it directly affects us. And the reason we're there. And I just like that to be considered. That would be a huge blessing if you guys would consider some kind of buffers and that traffic situation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I had a couple, I'm going to come back to you on some of your comments. We had a couple signed up neutral. Tim Voslo.
Tim Voslo, 20804 Brown Lane. I am, I guess, the first. I'm right in the middle of the far east road there. I live on CW's old house. So, and by the way, I already talked to David. There he is. Virgil is spelled wrong because I still have Virgil. He's a 35-year-old donkey, but I got him. So, and we did put Danny down about 6 weeks ago. So Danny is Danny Circle.
Are you talking about your records, like how it's shown? on
Yeah,
the plat?
well, yeah, street names, yeah, yeah. They're just the CW's horses is what they're named for. I put down neutral. I understand growth, but I just want to be smart about it, just like everybody else. Like Chuck talked earlier, a Thrill Hill, they shaved it down, I don't know how many years ago. I've been here 5 years, but it would be nice for that, like we talked about earlier, realign that, but if they could even shave it down more, because at night you're coming up that hill, you can't see the car coming at you. And my thinking is, 5 years down the line, if somebody's coming west on 38, they can't see down the hill, and once they go over that hill, there might be somebody slow turning into this subdivision. I envision four-way stop, a light, a circle, or something at 38 and Dubose, they call it Dubose, but it's 38 South. You mentioned Brown Lane earlier. So last year they were, you know how they scrape the Brown Lane, or they scrape all the roads to the grass so they can repaint the edge? So they were going down Brown Lane, they painted the two yellow lines in the middle, but they stopped, and I even called, why didn't they paint the white edge lines? Because it had deteriorated so much that when they were scraping it, it was just scraping up the road and tearing up the road. So they said they're not even going to continue scraping the grass because it's deteriorated so much. So I don't know when that was paved. I think Travis Brown or somebody had something to do with that paving, but it would be nice if that was paved so that they could put, there is no light on that road at night, so there's no edge on there. And then from my house, I got 19 seconds, there's a buffer on the west side of Brown Lane right now where after they cut out the paper mill trees, but there's maybe a tree every 20 feet. It would be great to see some sort of vegetation buffer. There is the easement on the other side is more, but I'd like to see some of that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Last is Cindy Brassfield.
I am Cindy Brassfield, and my property borders the northern, or actually the northeast portion of that property. So I'm thrilled to see this map because I knew there were wetlands behind me, lots of wetlands. So I see that was my main reason for coming, and information gathering, and I will say I'm excited that they've set aside that much in wetlands. My question is to the developer, or how much, what do they leave? What do they do with this wetland? Is it going to look like it looks now, or will can they modify it at all? Or everything north of Waterhole Branch is going to be preserved exactly like it is now?
It's what it
I'm
should
going
be.
to let our environmentalist answer that question. Ashley, she didn't get a lot of questions, but she got two tonight.
I was just thinking I don't ever get asked questions anymore, and I get two tonight. But we do have a wetland setback, and the no building structures can be within 15 feet, and there's a 15-foot natural buffer. So there will be a 15-foot natural buffer between any construction and the wetlands.
Okay.
Natural. So that means it has to stay vegetated, cannot be disturbed.
Okay. So your wild hogs that are behind my house are probably going to go right through the middle of your subdivision.
Sandy, you have to speak to the
I'm
microphone.
sorry. Okay. Well, there's a lot of wild hogs back there. They're not my best friends, but they do exist there. They're likely to come down the middle of that subdivision. But so just be prepared. Make sure your guys put your garbage up and all that really well in good containers, because they will raise hell with garbage out. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that's all I had signed up to speak. I will close the public hearing. For a couple of the comments that were made, unfortunately, you got to remember, this is unzoned area. Our hands are somewhat tied as to what I heard some of your comments, and I can appreciate it, but.
I have a question. Can we put in our specific conditions that the developer repave whatever portion of Brown Road that we, at minimum, from the entrance they plan on using to 38, or that portion of Brown Lane?
Yes, I think it would be appropriate to put in the conditions that, to address Brown Lane and that intersection at 38, as well as make sure we verify sight distance for that vertical curve. We had that similar situation on the north end of the county not too long ago, and that's how we addressed it there. And so if we put it as a condition, then during construction plan review, we can verify that all that's adequate. And Mr. Chairman, on the buffering comment that I think that you were alluding to, you're correct. This is unzoned, and our current subdivision regulations don't require any buffering. So there's really nothing in the regulations that we could require any buffering. I mean, anything in the right-of-way would obviously most likely stay, but there's no guarantee that it would always be there.
I have a question. It's not, is there a required landscape plan?
No.
No.
Currently, there's no required, in unzoned areas, there's no required landscaping, buffers, or open space.
All right, any other questions? Close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion. Unless you got a question. I'm not trying to rush this, but no question, I'm going to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve with staff conditions.
All right, Mr. Vice made a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
Seconded.
Mr. Seibert seconded the motion.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, with the conditions we just discussed about Brown Lane and the vertical curve?
Yeah, she wrote them on there.
Yes.
Well, Brandon, you're including the comment, the conditions that were stated for Brown Lane?
Yes, I see she added them, so I was
Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that was what you wanted.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded to approve. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. That's the last of our case items tonight.
Mr. Chairman.
We do have one
Mr.
new
Chairman,
business item for, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, my apologies to the chair and to the commissioners. Before we move past case items, I did not hear PER 24-41 and PER 24-42 named in the motion when we adopted the consent agenda. And I was not able to get the chairman's attention because I did not have a microphone. Would the Planning Commission consider amending their motion to include those two items or do a separate vote?
This is on what?
So the two extensions.
Oh, the first two items?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did not hear them named in the actual motion that
I
was
did, I
adopted.
named them out, but if you want a motion, we can do it. I remember naming them out because somebody corrected me on it, and I came back and added them, and just didn't include them in our
Yes, sir. It
public
was in the,
hearing.
that's right. It was in the discussion, but it wasn't in the motion itself. Out of abundance of caution, I wanted to ask for
Okay.
that.
You want an amended motion then?
Whatever please the chairman. And because those are an extension that don't have a public hearing, I think it would be well within order to have a standalone vote for those as well.
I think I made the motion, so I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda on PER 24-41 and PER 24-42.
Okay, have a second. Mr. Seibert, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. We have, under new business, we have our calendar. Everybody should have gotten a copy of it. Anybody have any issues with it? So I'll entertain a motion that this calendar as printed be approved.
I'll second it.
No, I need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Seibert made a motion to approve now.
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Bullock, second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Calendar is approved. I don't have anybody signed up for public comments. All right, staff reports.
Mr. Chairman, just to restate what we talked about during the work session, that remind everyone that next Thursday morning in Bayonet, we have our work session with the County Commission regarding the proposed amendments to the subdivision regulations. Would love for anyone to come. We've gotten a good number of written comments, some very good comments. I think everybody was very organized with how they all came in, and I appreciate the subdivision subcommittee providing their comments, and we'll go through them all next week and hopefully get a path forward for how we're going to address the regulations.
Okay.
I have a question along those lines. Can we add something to our list? Solid waste comes up a lot recently. Can we put something, just a brief regulation or something under the utilities that they're now included in subdivisions,
So
site plans, RV parks?
when you say an approval, do you want like the typical way of handling that for single-family developments, which is mostly what we see? And we did address it in condominiums, RV parks, mobile home parks. We addressed it as to be a centralized collection, like a dumpster. Now, single-family, obviously they're most always roll out containers. Typically how that's handled is we just require a letter from the solid waste provider that they can serve the development. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, just a letter, so
Okay,
so
yeah.
that they're aware if they have to have more staff coming.
Yes, we can add that.
Okay.
I have one other thing. Last year, we did, after our December meeting, we had a small little Christmas gathering. Is that something we would like to entertain for December the 5th after our next meeting?